folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Texas SignalCast. I'm your host, Joe Desotel, and I'm here with my co-host, Jessica Montoya Coggins.
Hey, guys.
And a special guest, Salman Bhojani. He is a former Mayor Pro-Tem of the city of Euless in North Texas, and now a candidate for the Senate District 9. Hello, Salman.
Hey, how are you?
Great. So great to have you on the show. Texas Signal is really a platform for progressives to sort of connect across the state. We have such a big state, and a lot of people kind of pay attention to what's going on locally. And we want to try to introduce folks who are running at different levels. We have a lot of great leaders at the local level. We don't really have that at the statewide level. And so we want to try to kind of fill that gap where we can give a platform to folks like you. So why don't you just take a minute and tell us about yourself, your background, and what you're doing?
Sure. Thank you, Joe. Thanks, everybody, for joining. My name is Salman Bhojani. I am an immigrant, moved here from Pakistan. And when I came here, I used to work for $6 an hour, mopping floors, cleaning restrooms, and stocking coolers. And from there, worked really hard to live the American dream. And I'm really happy to report that now I own my gas stations. I'm an attorney by profession. I have my own law firm and a business owner, and contributing back to America. America has given me a lot. And only in this country can a story like mine happen. I got politically motivated in 2016 when we elected our former president. And that's what made me come into politics. And I put my name in the hat in 2017 in the Euless City Council. I lost by only a few hundred votes. And then 2018, I came back and we won, became the first minority in the history of the city of Euless to be elected to Euless City Council. So really, really blessed to have that support. And frankly, the last 3 years, I've really enjoyed being a city council member and a public servant. That's what I call it, right? And not just doing your 2 city council meetings a month. I've been really out and about in the community, trying to really represent everybody's interest in a best way. And so now I've got that knack for it, and I feel that I can represent. I think the issue, as you will agree, is not with the local municipalities, it's with the state. And I think it's gotten more and more away from their constituents. And it's just about pleasing party before the state and the Texans. So that's what I feel that's unfair. And I think that's something that I want to change when I get elected. And so now I'm running for the Senate District 9. I want to be the Democratic candidate for Senate District 9 and make change in the community, right? Because I think that's what's really needed at the state level.
Yeah, and it's so hard to get folks who are talented to do that because they get in their seat as you were, and they get comfortable there because they know they can win re-election. And then to think about going to these Senate districts or House districts where it's so gerrymandered, it's like intentionally made difficult for someone like you to advance their political careers and do this type of work. So what inspired you to sort of leave the seat that you won and pursue this office where it's really just so difficult right now?
Oh, it's a great question. And actually somebody a couple of days ago told me that I've already made history by announcing, because no South Asian has ever even run for Senate district, right? So it's
That's crazy.
I know, but at the same time, that's how difficult it is. What made me and inspired me was when I was a city council member for the last 3 years and the mayor pro tem. I felt that my state representative should have reached out to me, right? Because when you have local elected officials, we are the closest to the people, right? Our constituents. So we know like the Euless City Council knows what's happening in Euless. They have the ear to the ground. They have the pulse of the people. And what best way to represent your community other than going to the city council member and say, hey, how can I help you? And I've not seen my state representative or the state senator, other than I attended a far right wing association, and that's when I saw him, and that was really unfortunate. So I thought that needs to change. And another thing is, there's been an attack, there's been a war between the state and local municipalities, and I don't understand that. That defies all logic and common sense. And I felt, why is that? And even my fellow city council members that are Republican understand that this is not good for the people of Euless and the people of Texas. And so that's what made me feel like, hey, if both sides are, having the same issue of local control, and actually that's what you're seeing right now, right? That the local municipalities and the school districts are having to sue the state, right, in order to to protect their children and in their health, which again makes no sense. But that's why I think that drive to run the entire state, a diverse state like Texas from Austin, that does not work at all. So that's another thing that inspired me to run for this office and give representation better. And you've seen in the census data that America now and Texas now is much more diverse than it was 10 years ago, right? And so that, again, going along that same line, that we need that representation on the state Senate.
Mm-hmm. Right. The census data, it showed that 95% of the growth in this state was from people of color. Absolutely. And actually Asians are the fastest pace with that demographic. It's not Hispanics, as some might assume. So I live in Dallas, so I'm a little familiar with Euless and this Senate district, but could you sort of let us know what this district looks like, and again, how it's changed so much in the last couple of years?
Absolutely. Yeah, great question. So this is a very, very gerrymandered district. If you look at it, it'll seem like a lung shape, right? So it's like you got a right lung, and then a left lung. And then it's connected by a small sliver of Highway 121, basically. So it's already gerrymandered and has about 22 different cities in it, 9 school districts. So it's a huge district. And it'll most likely have more than 950,000 people in this district, right? So this is going to be a much, much bigger than congressional district. It's leaning more Republican, or it has in 2018. Our current president, Joe Biden, won that district by 1.5%, right? So it's winnable for a Democrat. I think, we need to do the work, right? And that work requires people to bringing first-time voters in the district to come out to vote, right? And one thing that I've learned about my community as South Asians is that they don't come out to vote unless they see one of them on the ballot, right? So that's another thing that I'm hoping to get more and more turnout, because as you see the increase of diversity in our district or in our country, the other fact is that people of diverse backgrounds do not come out and vote. That's what I did for my city council race. When I ran in 2018, I brought 1,000 new voters to vote. They've never voted, not only in city election, but even in a federal election as well. So that's what will require hard work, raising a lot of money, and promoting awareness about the campaign. And I'm ready to do that on a full-time basis. In fact, I went to my wife, a couple of months ago, because I was thinking about it, right? Like Joe said, right? I could have sat on my seat in the Euless City Council and just be comfortable over there. But I told my wife, Nima, that, hey, I really have, I have a passion to do this. Would you mind, if I did this for the rest of my life? And she was so excited. I mean, in one way, she knows that she's going to have to give up a lot of time of me, right? But she knows that this is my passion, and said, okay, that's fine. So I have that approval now. So I'm going to devote the rest of my life. So this is not only 2022. I'm not only running for 2022. I'm running for 24, 26, 2030, whatever it takes to provide good representation for the people of Texas.
Well, that's incredible. Kudos to your wife.
I know. Thanks to her, I'm telling you. Yeah, and my parents who live with me as well, and my kids. I think I've sat everybody down and said, this is what I want to do. And I'm so glad that they accepted that.
Yeah. I mean, it is absolutely a family effort. Yeah. Everybody is involved in one way or another, and it affects them. And so what do you think, we're going to have a redistricting effort. It looks like Dallas may even get a new congressional seat. Well, that just tells us that the growth is in that area. Do you see opportunity to perhaps draw a better district, or what would that look like, a better district or how do you in general think that the census numbers are going to affect how the district actually looks in North Texas? Yours.
I mean, we know the census will show, or already has shown, that there's more diversity in this, right? Either North Texas or entire Texas. The issue is not that how we see it. The issue is how the Republican legislature that's controlled, how will they try to make it more and more Republican district? So what's unique is all around Senate District 9, Senate District, which is Senate District 12, 16, and 10, and all of them are held by Democrats, which is awesome, right? You've got Senator Johnson, you've got Senator Royce West, and Senator Beverly Powell. So I'm not sure if they're thinking that, okay, they've not given up on that, so they may pack more Republicans in that district, making the Senate District 9 more Democratic, right? That's one way to go about it. I don't know. I think that's wishful thinking from my perspective. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I'm ready for the worst, which is the other way around, where they'll say, hey, let's take more Republicans from those districts because we're done with those districts. We're not going to get them back, and put those in Senate District 9. So give Kelly Hancock a much better district, so that way he's sort of entrenched in state Senate, right? So maybe make it easier for him to win again. And so if that happened, I mean, I'm ready for that, right? Like I said, look, I mean, there's a numbers that you look at and you say, hey, look, there are this many Republicans, this many Democrats. But what's more important is to see how many more new voters we can register, because everybody that's moving from California or other states, guess what? They may be more Democratic, right? So we need to register them. We need to make sure that they're engaged and they feel that their vested interest in this state and in this district for them to come out and vote. And so that's what my game plan is going to be. But I mean, I wish we had more control over how the districts are going to be drawn. Like, for example, Euless, right? I spoke at that hearing, a Senate district hearing a few months ago, where I said, hey, my city of Euless is broken up into two different districts, Senate District 9 and Senate District 10, right? And it's better if the entire city is in one district, but it's so much heavily gerrymandered district that it's difficult. We have to go to two different senators. And Beverly Powell has been great, but Kelly Hancock is not, right? So I made that case, but I think, again, they'll do what they think is best for them to stay in power next 10 years, which, again, whatever it is, at the end of the day, we won't have much control over it, but we need to take it for what it's worth and then just move forward and take it for, this is as a challenge, basically, right?
You mentioned the current holder of the Senate seat, Kelly Hancock, and he has been, I think, certainly one of the most anti-LGBT Republicans, just on a whole host of the culture war issues. He has sort of gone, if you looked at sort of what the demographics were of Texas and thought, oh, I might need to moderate a little bit, he's actually gone in like the complete opposite direction. How do you think that really actually squares with the district and sort of what the values are there?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I don't think he's in tune with the values of the district, right? Either he's, really trying to, appeal to the far right wing, or maybe his own personal values are so right wing that they're not appealing to anybody, right? That a moderate Republican would be able to, really appeal to that district, or a moderate Democrat could be also appealing to that district, but he's not. Like I explained to you, like my fellow city council members who are Republican basically are not supporting him, right? They don't like him as well, right? And so I think that's important to understand that this is an issue. Like, for example, local control is a big, big issue that both Republicans and Democrats are totally in sync with, and there are local elected officials, right? And so I think that they understand that you cannot run the entire state of Texas from Austin. And like I talked about, other issues that are there, I think that's where Kelly Hancock is vulnerable, right? But another thing is these districts are so huge that it's very difficult to appeal to a Senate District 9 voter and say, hey, do you even know Kelly Hancock? Like, I've been talking to so many people, they're like, I don't even know who Kelly Hancock is, right? So that gives you the answer that there are Republicans who are really, really excited about these races, and they come in and vote in large numbers, and they just get, and these right-wing Republicans get voted. But that's not what the district looks like. And in fact, census data will show it's in fact not what the district looks like right now. And so, we will have to really put those issues in people's minds and in front of their eyes and say, hey, look, here's what you have, right? Do you want to re-elect the same person that has not done anything for you? Like, I mean, think about this, right? For last 8 years, there's not been a town hall meeting. That's the first thing I'm going to do, right? As soon as I get elected, let's do a town hall meeting, right? Why not, right? How do I, as an elected official, let's say in Euless City Council, right? How do I know what my people want if I don't reach out to them? I was able to reach out to the Nepalese community in Euless, and we started this quarterly meeting with the city council. So Nepalese community meeting would come in and they would meet with the city council members, and they told us about what issues that they wanted to see. One thing was they wanted their women to have more jobs. And then second thing, they wanted interpreting services for their senior citizens because they were paying a lot of money for it. So we connected them with Catholic Charities, which is, by the way, an amazing nonprofit organization. They in turn and come in through that dialogue, right, and that communication, we were able to get 2 jobs. So Catholic Charities hired 2 Nepalese women to do interpreting services, and they went back to the Nepalese community and said, we'll provide free interpreting services for you. So it's basically a win-win-win solution. And that's exactly what I want to craft, right? But how did that come about? I would not have known about it if we did not start this quarterly meeting with the Nepalese community in Euless. And so that's what I want to do more of when I get elected to state Senate. But that's been missing from the equation completely. It's not like, okay, he did some and then now he didn't do it, or he did some. Never, right? This doesn't make sense. So that's why I'm saying that he's totally not in sync with the district, and you nailed it right there.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like they are, only concerned about what the primary voters think and say, and that comes straight down from the top, in this case from Trump. And we see that. And you mentioned earlier the fight over local control, which right now is driven by COVID and mask mandates. And you have the locals all over the whole state of Texas suing the governor over 50 or 60 different jurisdictions.
Can I just interject and say that Paris ISD, so for folks who don't know Paris, Texas, it's actually where I got my coronavirus, where I got my Moderna vaccine. But it is a very rural part of Texas. It is very red. And they even had to finagle a new way about this, where they went to their dress code and said, all right, if we cannot do the mask mandate, we're going to put this in our dress code. So that's like the situation that our governor has created, forcing a super Republican, a centered ISD to just sort of say like, well, you know what, we'll find a loophole here.
It's a creative solution, though.
It's creative.
Yeah, necessity, the mother of invention, right? And so, it starts, local control is sort of this bigger theme, but when you kind of pull back the layers, what's driving that right now? It's COVID. So I'm wondering, what are you kind of hearing on the ground from folks in terms of issues and how COVID may or may not be changing their perspective about their identity as a Republican, or even just getting involved for the first time in local politics?
Yeah, when I talk to people, I try not to put them in like buckets of R and D, right? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, we're Americans, we're Texans, and we all want good for our families. We want common sense, leaders to have common sense solutions to the things, and then we want to have a brighter future for our kids, right? And if you can resonate with voters from that perspective, that makes more sense than to talk about what divides us, because there's so much that unites us. And unfortunately, sometimes, people speak more about what divides us than what unites us. And so I talk about that. But, as I think there's a huge issue that is percolating in the Republican Party, right? And I think everybody knows about it, Democrats and Republicans alike, where if it's a party of the former president, or is it the party that, our forefathers or founders started, with different kind of, ideas that mix everything together and look for a better America. The values that I came to this country for, I immigrated to America, right, because of those values, right, of hard work and determination and ethics and all that, and civility and compassion in your discourse, that completely was erased in the last 4 years, right? So that's where I think there are a lot of moderate Republicans who are saying no to the former president being the party spokesperson or face of the party, or the fact that if you run as a Republican, you need to get the endorsement of the former president. That there are a lot of people who are saying that makes no sense. Now, obviously, if you're will be challenged by a primary in the Republican Party, guess what? That kind of rhetoric resonates with you, like Abbott, right? I think Governor Abbott I felt somebody that I could have respected before, right? I think as the election is coming closer, or when he was running for the U.S. presidential election and all that made him more on the right side, right? And I think he's lost touch with the people of Texas, and that's where his downfall may come in, right? And so that's where, I mean, again, I don't know. I talked to a lot of different Republican friends of mine who are supporting us for the campaign. And I think they're really tired of this association with the former president, and I think that's what's going to drag down that party.
You mentioned immigration, and Abbott was very vocal a few years ago about not accepting Syrian refugees. He's one of the few governors who has not said anything about accepting Afghan refugees. Even the governors of Iowa and Utah have talked about that. And as you mentioned, it actually is very out of step with how Republicans used to be 30, 40 years ago. The last amnesty in our country was under Ronald Reagan. And it sort of strikes me that this district seems to have a very large immigrant population. The work that you were doing with the Nepalese community. So how do you think that you will sort of utilize that to sort of as you go forward with this campaign?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, immigration is a federal issue, but I think, I'm a story of how successful immigrants can come in and actually give back to their state and to their country. Right now, I'm a business owner I probably have hundreds of employees in my organization, right? I mean, I have several different ventures that I have, and I'm writing checks to them, that is expanding our economy, and it's making life better for so many people, and a lot of them are, American citizens, right? So it is giving back to America. And I think that's where we fall short and are short-sighted when we say, oh, these are people that will not contribute to America. Everybody that comes here comes for that story of American dream, right? To say, hey, I'm going to work hard. I came from nothing, and I'm going to make something out of that for my kids, right? And that's how we look at it. And I think sometimes even though my kids are born here, I feel like they need to see a story like mine and other immigrants as well. So that because I feel sometimes my kids can be, or our general kids can be entitled, right? Because they're living in a bubble, right? They think everybody has, expensive shoes or phone or their own room or everything like that, right? But that's not how the rest of the world lives, right? So my effort has always been to actually take them to other parts of the world to show them how people are living. But immigrants are absolutely contributing so much. I mean, this America is built on the fact that immigrants came in from other places outside America and made this country better, right? And people come here for knowledge, for universities, right? And if we're going to have a closed mindset not to take in immigrants, I think we're going to lose that edge that we have as America.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just looking at your branding, I mean, your message when I asked you about partisanship, you kind of went away from partisanship. And I look at the colors in your background, and just to be, quite transparent, I'm very always pro-progressive and help the Democrats and all that stuff. But I actually really like the fact that you have developed your own brand. Not only in your talking points, but your visual brand is very strong and very good. I like that, and I'm assuming that is, taken from your talking points, which is like, I'm not just trying to be over here or over there, and I'm really just want everybody to be approachable to everyone, so that your message can include them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually, Joe. I mean, I'm not a politician, right? I'm a business owner. I came to this country, worked hard, and made a business out of that. And so I feel that, that's what would resonate more with people. And if I want to do good in the community, we have two parties. Obviously, we have to associate, and Democratic Party is what, my values align with, right? And that's why I chose the Democratic Party. But at the end of the day, I think, like I said, most people don't think too much party along the party lines. Yes, it's when they get elected, they get either, on this side or that side. Yeah, and I think it is something that I'm a more moderate Democrat that understands that, hey, business is what fuels America. America is built on the backbone of small business owners, right? And immigration, and there are other things like that. But that doesn't mean that I'm not a Democrat. Like I espouse those values that are democratic, and I look forward that that people can resonate with that, because my campaign consultant asked me, what colors do you want? I said, I love green, right? Because green is, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. I mentor Boy Scouts a lot. My son is a Boy Scout, and I go to so many Boy Scout trips. And so when I ask these youth of America in Texas, I ask them, okay, what is the biggest issue of your lifetime? And they hands down tell me climate change, right? Nobody takes it seriously. He said, they're telling me that my generation does not take it seriously. And I asked them that, yes, there are people who are taking it seriously, but you're right? In my home, I want to make sure that I build a better, home for my kids, right? So I'll take all the issues I can address today, so that way my kids don't have to, right? But when we talk about the nation, or we talk about, the globe, or planet Earth, that we're just consuming, and polluting all that, we are not thinking about our kids. We're kicking the can down to say, hey, we don't want to make it better now. We're going to want to make it later on, right? So I think that's something that's phenomenally different, and I really want to. So that's why I said green is a good color that I like. And I don't want, and if I could make it purple, that would be best, right? Because that's what I think that, Texas is now. And hopefully we can bring the Georgia effect here and make it blue. But again, not just for the purpose of making blue, right? Mm-hmm. Making it really resonating with the community and making an impact to the community, right? Not just for the fact that, oh, now we are Democrats, but if you're not making any change, then what's the difference between us and the other party, right?
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, I remember when the Texas legislature was more bipartisan, and the thought was not to go represent your party, but to just go represent your district.
Exactly.
And okay, you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but look, we both support public schools, and we both, understand that if we take care of the people that elected us, then we're both coming back.
Yep.
And so, but that seems to be gone. And the fight that we're talking about, in which you mentioned that you're seeing partisans across the spectrum lean towards your campaign and sort of lean away from what they're seeing at that national and the state level. You know, we're seeing that even with people who are nonpartisan. The guy, I actually started a podcast years ago with a guy, and I hung out with him just 2 days ago in Houston, and he's Pakistani, and he was saying how his mom, never talks about politics. And she asked him the other day, she said, "What's the matter with Greg Abbott?" And he was like, just so surprised that she had an opinion about this, but she was afraid and seeing what's going on in the news with COVID and like, what is he doing? Like, what is he doing? And I'm just wondering, if there's like sort of an uprising from people who are totally not engaged, but now there's a connection to their life, their actual life, the quality of their life, and how can we sort of leverage that energy, not even in a partisan way, but just to get involved locally. And so what are you sort of doing actually out in the field with these conversations to kind of convert that into energy and action?
Right. So great question. So I'm getting a lot of parents, especially last week, as the schools are starting up, right? The Grapevine Colville ISD or the Carroll ISD, or there's so many ISDs here that, they do not have a mask mandate. And especially if you think about elementary schools, the kids under 12 cannot even be vaccinated. Like, it just does not make sense. Mask mandate for those young kids is required to keep them in check and, the health, of the kids. And they don't even have a virtual option, right? So when you don't have a virtual option, you're not requiring masks. It's like sending your kids in an environment they can absolutely get COVID right away. And so parents have reached out to me last week, and I said, let's talk to our elected school board trustees and see what we can do, right? And so did a lot of different social media posts around it, and connected them with their local elected trustees, right? So that way they can really understand and hear directly from the parents and say, hey, look, because they may think I'm running and that's why I'm bringing up this issue, but no, I connected them directly with the parents, and they're saying, hey, they're thinking about not even sending their kids, right? So now you're going to prevent these kids from learning and being better citizens of America and Texas. That makes no sense to me. So how can we, and then there are school districts that are going like Jessica talked about Paris and other districts. So, but they are afraid, right? Nobody wants to be sued. Nobody wants to take part in the lawsuit. As a city council member in Euless, I did not want to spend public money on wasting, with legal actions that, so there are everybody needs to look at their wallet and then see that, okay, does it even make sense to go through that? But when it comes for kids and their public safety, I think we need to put the foot down and really be united in one front. Unfortunately, that's where, the school district's board can come in and say, hey, yes, we made the decision or not make the decision, but they will be held accountable when they come for re-election, right?
This issue does seem to me like it is, a lot of the oxygen is being sucked up by a very small minority that is just very vocal. There's been some polling that shows actually about 72% of parents do support requiring masks at schools. The list, which our Attorney General very graciously compiled for a lot of journalists out there, that we were trying to keep track of all these ISDs that were doing this. But it is places like Paris ISD or these other places that are doing this. And it does seem to me that nobody wants to see, right now in the state of Texas, there's 500 kids that are hospitalized with COVID-19. Nobody really wants to see that. But so how are you trying to see, just even your capacity as a city council person, working with parents that, as you were saying, were afraid about this?
Yeah, so it's tough, right? Because there's not a lot in our control. And by the way, just to a disclaimer that I'm not elected anymore. I gave up my seat, as I said, because I was passionate about running for a higher office. So my term expired in May of 2021. This early a couple of months ago. But I still am involved in the city because obviously once you involve, at least from my perspective, I always stay involved. And so my job is more of connecting the people, right, and connecting the constituents with their elected officials. So that way they can hear directly, right? And that's important because especially when the elected officials are not hearing from their local constituents, they can be really, really sort of far apart in what they're thinking and what that people actually need. So that's what I've been trying to do from that perspective.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. I know you've got a lot more voters to talk to out there and members in your community. So, why don't you just maybe tell us how folks can find you online and maybe get connected with you and follow your progress?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. Our website is Bhojani for Texas, BHOJANI FORTEXAS.com. And you can read more about that. We're actually having a meet and greet this Saturday at the Labor Union Hall on Roof Snow in Fort Worth at 12:30 p.m. And we're going to have a volunteer summit following that. I just want to, and it's more of an organizing day as well, because I want to hear from people what's happening in the districts. I'm making phone calls to our precinct chairs and seeing how I can learn from them, because nobody knows everything, right? So how can I get more and more, because you could be blindsided by so many different experiences that we have. And my life has been all about getting different perspectives, right? I've been educated in 3 different continents, so many different languages that I speak and all that, but yet still I could be blindsided by my experience. So I try to add more and more unique perspectives. So African-American perspective or Hispanic perspective, or any other perspective that I can get to understand them better and to be able to govern better, right? And so if all elected officials did that, they wouldn't have to be worried about elections, because if you govern well, the people will automatically vote for you, right? Because they'll remember that this guy was actually out and about in the district and really made an impact in the community. And that's the kind of leader and elected official I want to be.
Absolutely. Well, we need more like that. So we appreciate it, and good luck, and we'll continue
best of luck
to follow
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks.